welcome in to the 5th episode of the Fantasy 4-Pack. I'm your host, Ian Power. Joined today by Frankie Santiago and Matt Vitale. I didn't forget your name this time, Frankie.
Good job.
Thank you very much.
Want to apologize for my forgetting what position people were at the end of last setting. There was a very large spider dangling from our ceiling fan. It was quite distracting. I had to point out after the episode that I totally messed up a position, but
Yeah.
I'm blaming it all on the spider.
Yeah, Frankie let him go, and he met his end the day later.
Spiders aside, how you guys doing today?
Well, as to your beer choice, I have to commend you. I don't hate it.
Oh, Porch Rocker's
I
great.
can actually drink this one as opposed to the lawn clippings you guys usually choose.
Well, it's 2 weeks in a row that Vitale doesn't hate the beer.
Yeah.
Porch Rocker's technically a lager, right, Frankie?
No, this would be a Radler. It says on the can,
Yeah,
refreshing and
refreshing.
tangy Radler.
It does taste quite refreshing and tangy.
Well,
And
it also says lager on the can, Frank. Come on. Okay, regardless. Today we're going to be talking wide receivers with you guys. We're going through the ECR top 168, and we're just talking some of our guys that we've identified as being either over or under ranked. We don't go the entire way through the top 168. So if you're holding on to hear us talk about Chris Hogan versus Braxton Berrios,
Whoa,
you're going to be sorely disappointed.
well, it was only 2 seasons ago. Hogan was putting up 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns.
Yeah, well, he's dead to me. So
But we do have a nice little value pack at the end there for a couple guys that we each feel that you should try and pick up late in your drafts that might be, a little bit of a sleeper for you.
yeah, and as always, just a reminder, like, subscribe on YouTube. We appreciate it. Share the video if you think that we're giving out good advice. As a small YouTube channel, everything helps.
Yeah.
So, and obviously ring that notification bell so you can find out when we post new stuff.
Yeah, hit that bell.
Ding, ding.
Ding a ding a ding. With that, let's jump into the list. Going to be talking about a guy that I'm personally, not that I hate his value, or hate where he's being drafted, but I think that it's just a little too high for where he's going. DeAndre Hopkins, I think he's still going to have a good season, and I have him. I obviously have him catching the most balls on that Cardinals team. But he's currently at 4 on ECR, high spot of 2, low spot of 10, and it looks like his ADP is actually 2 right now. Obviously not a lot of drafts going on, so that ADP is going to be a little messed up.
Yeah,
but
it's going to fluctuate.
yeah, I obviously expect that to fall. But even with an average, so his average ranking for ECR, and we use the Fantasy Pros ECR. It's a great tool. I can't recommend it enough. You can go in and you can sort by experts that you want, or you can just take the total of the industry and go from there. We are using the default ECR for our video today, but the average of the default ECR, so the 58 guys that have him ranked, is 4.2, which I do feel is too rich because it puts him ahead of guys like Tyreek Hill, Chris Godwin, Kenny Golladay, all of whom I believe are going to have better seasons than him. And it's not because I hate DeAndre Hopkins. There's going to be a lot of competition for targets on that team. Christian Kirk is still going to be there. Kenyon Drake's, he's a pass-catching running back. He's going to have, his opportunities to perform out of the backfield. I have him getting 70 targets right now. And then you still have guys like Andy Isabella, Larry Fitzgerald, Hakeem Butler that are all behind them on the depth chart, but they're all going to catch passes as well. The tight ends are nothing to speak of, but you still have to factor them into the equation as well. It's just there's a lot of mouths to feed in that offense.
Yeah, I feel the same way, but from where I've been seeing him go in some of the mock drafts I've done, that back of the second round price, I'm usually comfortable paying. But I do agree there is a lot of his positioning right now is due to the past performances. You look back at his targets. He's a 150 target guy easy, but that's on Houston, where it was him, a cliff edge, and then everybody else with the talent. I mean, normally I'm pro him just because his quarterback play usually is he's even with minor quarterbacks, he can still get it done. But at the end of the day, it's one of those guys that I'm just his name is just too sexy to pass up there.
He's also in a new system, though. I mean, I would probably put him behind Godwin, Galladay, maybe Evans.
So,
I mean, I think he is going to garner a lot of targets. Probably he's going to lead the team in targets.
yeah,
But
there's no question in that.
Yeah.
But I mean, like at the same time, he's in a new system. Typically, it takes a few games to get going for wide receivers, or they get lucky and they hit it off. But I think it's going to be a slow start for him. He is going to see the targets. I don't know if it's going to pan out. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. But I think he could stand to go down a couple slots.
So that's my biggest thing. Is it's not that I think he's gonna have a horrible season. I have him in line to have a little bit better of a season than he had last year. But wide receiver as a whole didn't do great last year. And also, last year was a big step back for DeAndre Hopkins from what he usually does. Like I said, I would really only move him down to probably 7 tops. And we'll talk about, the guy that's currently at 7 is someone that I really do not agree that he's there. But the only people that I move above him, Kenny Galladay, Chris Godwin, and Tyreek Hill, are all people that I think are going to get there just based on volume and target priority. They're going to have better seasons than him, barring massive injury. And then Tyreek Hill is just Tyreek Hill. I mean, he could catch 60 passes for 75 yards each pass because he's on the Chiefs and they're insane. He could be number 1, honestly. Like I think 5 is ridiculous for Tyreek Hill, but there's that small clump of receivers behind DeAndre Hopkins that I really would prioritize ahead of him just based on a shorter target tree, which is something I typically look for in drafts.
Yeah, I think just my last little bit on him is just that I think he's guaranteed at least 1,100 yards. It seems like he kind of sleepwalks to that number. I think with him, what you're wondering is, are you going to get the 4 touchdown season, or are you going to get 13? I think that's what really separates him. If you can get that double-digit touchdown, then you're gonna get paid back in full for that draft price that you're paying right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I say, it comes back to the target tree. With a bigger target tree, there's more chances of the targets not going to the guy you want them to go to in the end zone, especially with a lot of talented receivers.
Yeah.
Let's jump to that guy that we all hate at 7. And not that, I guess, once again, hate's a strong word, but Frank, I'll let you lead him off because I know you are our resident Allen Robinson homer. Why do you feel that Allen Robinson is misranked at 7?
I just don't think he's going to see 154 targets again. Like, that's
Fair.
a little bit absurd. I mean, I think Mitch Trubisky or Nick Foles, whoever's quarterbacking the Chicago offense.
Insert quarterback here.
Whoever's quarterbacking that. And also I'm high on Anthony Miller. Not super high, but I think he's going to take a step up this year. And
But what about Jimmy Graham, Frankie?
the corpse of Jimmy Graham. I mean, I just think that that's just way too high as far as they're again, same thing with DeAndre. I would pretty much take everybody that's on this list. I don't know. You guys can't see it, but names like Galladay, Evans, DJ Moore, Juju, Amari. I would take all of them above Allen Robinson, Cooper Kupp. It pretty much just goes on.
Yeah.
I think that also he has been injured before. I also don't like injury-prone players.
I don't predict for injury, but
Yeah.
it's fair. I mean, it's something to keep in the back of your mind when you're stacking him up against players who don't have an injury history. It's a decent tiebreaker if you're putting him up against someone like Chris Godwin or DJ Moore or Mike Evans, where they've never really been hurt or they've had a fluke injury.
Well, also just quarterback skill too.
Yeah.
That's not even They basically don't have a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, he's that guy, like I said, as you know, right before we started the show, I was like, hey, Frankie, do you think you can sell me on AR-15? Because he's really high ranked, and I have no love for him. I mean, honestly, if I was just kind of spitballing where I'd put him, I'd be putting him down at like 15, 16. I'd have him battle with Keenan Allen, who I do like at that point, and I think I would like AR-15 at that point. But when you're telling me that there's guys with way more upside, like Juju Smith-Schuster, OBJ, that I can get later, I will 100% pass on AR-15 right there. It's just Chicago is not a great offensive team. He got so many targets, and it took basically them force feeding him the rock to get him there. And I think you're going to see that come back a bit as a whole, even if he gets the quarterback that knows him in Nick Foles.
Well, and that is a great point as to why I think we're all lower on him than ECR is when you look at it. Like, half the reason that he got that target volume last year was because everyone was hurt. Like every single other person on that team seemed like they were off the field for stretches of a time at one point or the other. David Montgomery was doing nothing, and spoiler, they didn't upgrade their offensive line at all. They did nothing to change that. So Dave Montgomery's still probably going to do nothing. Whoever the quarterback is going to be running for their life because they got 5 turnstiles on the offensive line. And then you factor in that they're going to have a healthier receiving core. It's just mathematically, it's very unlikely that he gets to 154 because that's basically the best he can do. Like that's a lot of targets.
Yeah.
I mean, guys who hit 154 last season, or 150 plus, it was basically just him and Michael Thomas.
Yeah, it's a small
Keenan
list.
Allen got close, DeAndre Hopkins got close, Julio got close, but like Julian Edelman got close. I mean, there's only 6 guys who even got like in the ballpark of 150.
Yeah, it's an elite group to get up there, and he is like when you look through that group, he's that odd man out that he's got the talent. He's
Jules is an odd man out too, especially with Brady gone. But
I mean, Jules, they just throw the ball. It's kind of a similar situation, but I would say a better team they just force fed him the ball because Brady knew him and he didn't want to work with other receivers. But AR-15, he's a guy I'm comfortable passing on. Let somebody else deal with him, and I'm fine to be wrong. If he can turn in another 156 targets, then next year I'll talk about how I like him because he got that twice.
yeah, that's fair. I think I would take a similar stance to that, where if I could get him further back, I'd be happy to, but I'm not going to, so I'm just going to let him pass, and if it comes back to bite me, it comes back to bite me.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a guy that I think should be in that tier 2 that isn't. A guy that I'm a big fan of this season. One Mr. Kenny Golladay. So I know you guys are both down on him. Before I say why I believe he should be higher, do you guys want to tell me why you think you're lower on him?
I love his route running. I think as a player, I think he's highly talented, and I liked watching how he took over that offense and became the number one. I just feel like Detroit is slipping down and is becoming anemic. I mean, their run game, granted it was devastated, but they, for some reason, even though they had 3 capable running backs, went and used a second-round pick on DeAndre Swift, who I think is a great player, but they had so many other holes they need to address on that team. And Matt Stafford is coming off of a back injury, so not something simple that I feel like he's a risk for re-injury. I love Matt Stafford as a late-round quarterback, but I think Kenny G, I don't hate him. I think he's just, that's about as expensive as I'm willing to go on him, is putting him at that 7. Like I said, he's just one of those guys, I don't see the upside.
So I personally would move him up to 6. Big reason for me is I touched on it with DeAndre Hopkins, but it's the condensed target tree out there in Detroit, and the fact that Stafford is back. As I don't really predict for injury, and when Stafford's on the field, he's very productive. The offense as a whole isn't bad. They were blighted with injury last season. So when you factor in that Stafford's going to be back, Carry-On's going to be back, they just got DeAndre Swift, which gives them another weapon to use in that running game if Carry-On goes down again. They still have Marvin Jones.
Johnson.
Yeah, they TJ Hawkinson should take a step forward in his sophomore year. Like, the offense as a whole is very strong, but they don't really have any other alpha weapons in that offense aside from Kenny Golladay, which means that he's going to keep getting that touchdown equity. He's going to keep getting the lion's share of the targets. And, I mean, really, when you look at what he did last year, which was, not a bad year at all, 113 targets, 65 catches, 11 touchdowns. The 11 touchdowns might come down a bit, but I think you can still comfortably project him for, 7 or 8 touchdowns. And honestly, the target percentage and catches should go up with Stafford under helm instead of the carousel that they had this past year. I mean, if he can do well with just like the plug and play that they were doing, where they're basically pulling fans out of the stands and having him throw the ball, I think he can do well with Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, I mean,
And don't forget, Stafford's young.
he is. Like I said, he's just.
Feels like he's been playing forever.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that feels like he's been playing forever, but he also is just a guy that he just gets nicked up. Like, he plays through it, which is great, and you love that in a quarterback, especially a franchise guy like him. And I've always wanted to see him do well, but, it's a broken arm. It's his back, his ribs. He's like Big Ben. He just collects injuries because he just puts himself through the abuse. And I just think it's starting to pile up where, just like I said, with Big Ben right now, it's easier for him to get a little too nicked up.
That's fair. Frankie, any thoughts?
No, I mean, Vitali pretty much said everything I wanted to say, that they could have filled better holes on their offenses, and that I mean, for me, it's less of like trust in the quarterback, because I do trust Stafford. He is efficient when he's on the field. It's more of I don't trust Detroit as a team. And I do agree to your point too as well. I mean, I guess I wouldn't bump him down too much. I would probably put maybe Mike Evans, but I also think he's going to take a step back this year.
So if I could just say a quick point on Evans and why I'm not talking more about him, but why I'm higher on Godwin. I personally think that there's only be one wide receiver to own in Tampa Bay. Obviously, none of us know definitively what it is. I'm siding on the Godwin side, so I'm going to be lower on Evans. But I don't agree that you can put Evans and Godwin ahead of him, because then you're just hedging your bets, but one of them's guaranteed to lose almost. I think Brady's just too old to support both of them. Yeah. But we can talk about that on the quarterback show. My final point on Godwin, I don't know if you guys have looked at the rankings yet, if you guys have statted out the Lions yet, but PFF does have Stafford getting 4,200 yards and 25 touchdowns this year. If he's getting that, someone's got to be catching it, and that means that a lot of it's going to be going to Golladay. So, I think he is a safe bet, and if he stays where he is, he's going to be a massive value in drafts. He's going to be someone that I'm going to be ending up with a lot, especially if he doesn't move. Jumping to the next guy on the list, another guy who very truncated target tree, actually whom targets moved out of town this offseason, a quite sizable amount. Thielen, all by his lonesome out there in Minnesota, provided the stadium doesn't burn down. I think that Vitali, you have a strong projection for him.
I like Thielen this year, especially at his ADP. I mean, he's already shown you the upside he can produce when he was just going 100-yard game, 100-yard game, 100-yard game. And now that Stephon Diggs is out and all those receptions are up in the air, I mean, quarterbacks like to have a security blanket, that guy they can just kind of go to when a play breaks down. So I can just see a lot of those plays where maybe the rookie, Justin Jefferson is misses a route or something like that, and Kirk Cousins just checks down and hits his slot guy. I mean, with that right there, I mean, that alone should push him up at least a few slots, maybe past Cooper Kupp and all the questions that are going on with that team, past Odell Beckham, if you don't believe that the Cleveland Browns can bounce back, past Amari Cooper, who now has a whole lot of mouths to feed on that team. Like I said, I think there's an easy path for Thielen to get into a high tier 2, fringe 1 territory.
Okay, I can buy that. I'm personally even on him, just purely from the standpoint of looking at who's around him. It's not that I don't like Thielen's opportunity. It's just that I feel like 8 or 15 is pretty fair when you factor that he's behind. I mean, like you said, people like DJ Moore, Juju Smith-Schuster, Odell Beckham, Cooper Kupp, who aren't slouches in their own right, and who also are high target guys. I don't really have a lot of issue with him being placed in at 15. I feel like, given that the Vikings aren't a pass-first offense, they do like to just give Dalvin the ball and let him run with it. And also that Dalvin is going to factor into the passing game, and Justin Jefferson very well could too. I think that's a fairly fair spot to rank him. Frankie, make sure to hear why you're down on him.
Well, let me just pull something up from just to double check something.
Yeah, I mean, while you're pulling that up, another thing I was just looking at why I'm so up on him is you just look at the track record. Since 2016, 92 targets, and then jumped to 142 targets, and then 153 targets. And then last year, he only played 10 games. Yeah, the Vikings as a whole were not gelling. And I think just because Cook's going to be back in the mixture, I mean, Cook was good his first year. He got 142 targets. I just think he's going to get pummeled with targets. He's a new Julian Edelman, I think a good way to put him. He's just going to get pummeled with targets. He's not going to go for a long bomb touchdown, but he's going to get you 1,000, 1,100 yards, and he's got a good shot to get you 5-6 touchdowns.
I don't know if I'd go that far. I mean, like, you guys do make a good point.
So you're down on him then?
Oh, I'm
Like, you're down.
I'm not super down. I would probably switch him with somebody else, which we'll get to in a minute. But
So I do just want to point out, you say you're not super down on him, but Vitale just projected him for 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns, and you said, that's a stretch. I think that qualifies as being super down on him.
I mean, the point I want to make is you guys made a very good point. His main target competitor did move out of town in Stephon Diggs.
Yep.
Sayonara.
It is a lot of vacated targets.
94 from last year. So you figure if he doubles what he did last year in terms of targets, assuming the role of Diggs and himself, because, I mean, who else is catching balls out there as far as receivers go?
Yeah.
That puts him at about 90 targets, almost 1,000 yards.
I don't even know who else they have on that team for wide receivers aside from him and Justin Jefferson. Like, is Laquan Treadwell still there?
I don't think so, but I know Kyle Rudolph's still there.
Oh, he doesn't count. I said wide receivers.
So either way,
Kyle Rudolph gets 14 targets a season.
If you double everything you did from last year, I'm a little bit more comfortable with that. It comes in around 850, 900 yards, around 90 targets. I don't know if I put him over 1,000. As far as guys I would put over 1,000, though, I would probably switch him based on these rankings with a guy I'm really high on, A.J. Brown. We saw at the end of last season what he can do.
So real fast, just so we can mention. So A.J. Brown is currently coming in at an average rank of 20. So you would do a full tier swap where you're bumping him down into tier 4, you're bumping A.J. Brown up into tier 3.
Yes.
That's significant.
Yeah, that's bold. I mean, like I said,
to give our viewers an idea of who he's going around there, if you bump him down to 20, he's going behind Cortland Sutton and just ahead of Devontae Parker.
Yeah. Just so, like I said, I would love for you to jump to AJ Brown so I can flip the script here and tell you why your pick here is terrible. But just to remind that season you're projecting there for Adam Thielen would be his third worst season since he came in. He's got 3 other seasons where he just missed 1,000 yards, got 900, 980, I believe, and then 2 seasons over that. The guy just gets 14 yards of reception, and just to say he's going to get under 90 again, I think that's a pretty bold take for a guy who's had 2 seasons over 100.
He's also getting older.
We're all getting older.
Well, to Frankie's point, we are all getting older, but I'm not trying to catch 140 passes in the NFL for the Minnesota Vikings. I'm trying to sit here and do a
Age is a factor, unless you're Tom Brady, apparently.
I'm just saying, 29, 30, that's the cream of most NFL players' season. I don't think he's got a long career ahead of him. 32, that's usually when we see wide receivers fall off, a la AJ Green. But like I said, I think he's still got 1 or 2 very good seasons left in him.
I do want to hear though why you have AJ Brown ranked as high as you do if you want to swap him with Thielen, because I mean that's a 5-point swap right there. You're bumping him from 20 to 15. I like AJ Brown, don't get me wrong, but that's strong. Like what's having you push him all the way up there?
Okay, so I mean he started 11 games last year. He played the 16, but I mean obviously you can see in that last 5 he was meshing with Tannehill, like kind of what I talked about with DeAndre.
Sure.
Where you're going to take that little bit to get used to your quarterback, which is why I was so low on not so low on DeAndre, but
well, yeah,
you know what I mean.
Well,
he's
and
going to
take having a strong repertoire with your quarterback is important.
So in that time, he was able to get almost 85 targets, 84. He had a 61% catch percentage, over 1,000 yards.
Yep.
8 touchdowns. I think we're gonna see about the same touchdowns. I have him slotted out for about 1,200 yards playing and starting a full season.
Okay, I think that's fair.
I have him around 70, 75 receptions. So not doing huge numbers, but I think like I said, with Thielen, if you double what he did last year, he gets 60 receptions. He gets 96 targets.
Okay.
I think Thielen's been trending down ever since Stephon Diggs came to town. He's getting older.
So Stephon Diggs is gone, right?
Yes. Thielen's also getting older. They're going towards a more run-heavy offense with Dalvin. They're obviously going to throw the ball to Dalvin. They're going to throw the ball to Kyle Rudolph. Obviously his biggest detractor, Stephon Diggs, did leave town. But I think, like I said, he's been trending down over the past couple of years. Also, can he stay healthy? Played 10 games last season. Obviously, you can't always count on injury. But I think there's no reason why A.J. Brown, being obviously the star in town, honestly a one-man show, Corey Davis is a ghost.
Yeah.
Who else is catching balls out there?
Adam Humphries, Jonnu Smith.
Yeah. I just want to jump in because I want to take some umbrage with you throwing that salt at Adam Thielen, saying he's on the downward track, because he was on a skyrocket track upward until he had that bad season last year where he was injured, only played 10 games, and only got 400 yards. So it's tough for me to believe that, but jumping to why I hate A.J. Brown, or at least hate is a strong word. I'm nowhere close to the hype train that everybody else is. I look back and him coming in third in yards per reception, and when you look at that stat, it's guys who you either don't know, and it's hard to pick out a couple of the elite guys. Mecole Hardman, I like him, but I know he's going to catch a ball and maybe he runs one in, but I'm not trying to rely on that. A.J. Brown was third with 20.21 yards per reception. The next guy down, the only guy who I consider elite in that tier, Kenny Golladay with 18.13. So I'm just looking at it.
Stephon Diggs was 17.97.
Yeah, like I said,
There's 17 point.
But I like how you conveniently jumped over number 5, Jake Kumerow. So I'm just saying yards per reception is just too fluky, and I think it's gonna come back. It's got to come back to earth. So you can't predict for him to have that.
Well, it's like
I agree. 20 is a high benchmark. I went ahead and did some math just to sort of show you what that looks like if he does come back to earth a little bit. So, because I think both of you make valid points. I think you're actually understating him a bit, because if you project him to get 75 catches at 20 yards of reception, you're adding 460 yards, not even counting the extra touchdowns that he would get. You're adding 460 yards onto his total if he's catching 23 more balls. If you have him regressing 5 yards a catch, so if you have him coming back to 15 yards a reception, he's still adding 345 yards onto his total, which is still putting him at about 1,400 yards last season, which is insane.
And just to speak to that, I do think there's going to be a regression as far as yards per reception go, because obviously he is catching those long balls.
Yeah.
But also he's going to be starting more games. He's going to be catching more balls in general because he's playing more games.
Well,
he's, like I said, the one show in town. Also, you brought up Adam Humphries and Jonnu Smith. Combined last season, they had just barely more targets than A.J. Brown did.
Well, and that's why I don't think it is I don't think it's a big step to project him to be getting 23 more catches and maybe 30 more targets, because he is going to be the horse in that offense as far as wide receivers go. He's going to be the first look on most of their passing routes. And he is getting those deeper targets. So while he should regress a little bit in yards per reception, his ADOT is probably going to stay pretty much where it was, which was 13.56. There's a lot of receivers around him with similar or higher ADOTs, which is a big stat when trying to figure out, if he had a crazy low ADOT but a high yards per reception, then that would be a bigger case for him falling back. But guys that he's around that I think he could very easily emulate next season: Mike Evans, Stephon Diggs, Kenny Golladay. all of whom had strong ADOTs and strong yards per reception. Sure, some of them were on teams that threw a little bit more, but I think Diggs is a good comp because he was on a team that didn't throw a lot, and he still had a successful season. Turned in a 1,100 yards, 6 TDs, 15.56 ADOT, and a 17.97 yards per reception. I mean, that's great. I'll take that from AJ Brown.
Yeah, I mean, I love that you brought up Stephon Diggs because as someone, if you're in a Stephon Diggs owner there, you remember the dregs of owning that guy last year and how long it took for him to finally break out, and he had to break out hard to put out those numbers. And like I said, AJ Brown, all I see are guys that I don't like. You're going to get a guy who's going to go out there, he's going to give you 3 receptions, 4 receptions, and you're just praying he breaks one deep. Otherwise, you're just going to be looking at, he gets 4 or 5 receptions. Yeah, I'm going to give him an uptake, but I mean, just because he is the best receiver, he's also on a team that wants to run the ball. And I think, like I said, as a whole, that team is just going to regress. And like I said, now, I'm not saying they're going into the dirt. I'm just saying they're going to struggle again to make it in the playoffs. I think they just kind of caught lightning in the bottle at the end of that season. And I think Ryan Tannehill is going to turn back into the pumpkin. He's not going to be that lovely carriage that brings you the ball. He is going to turn back into Ryan Tannehill. And that's why I just think you can't support that. I mean, just to kind of put him where I think he's appropriate is putting him a little bit ahead of Deebo Samuel. Another guy had 3 less targets than him. It was a run-heavy offense. He's got the speed. He had 14.1 yards reception. I can see that going up. It's just one of those things. It's like the valley that is between those two players is just far too much for me to go for him when I can just get Deebo rounds later.
And that's fair. I mean, at the end of the day, we are talking about a very young wide receiver who, while I think he has a bright future in front of him, he could regress this season. I personally just don't see, barring injury, I don't see him taking a step backwards. That's my big thing. And I mean, that was a big reason why Diggs did what he did last season. I don't know if you remember, he did spend a lot of September down with a hammy, where he was just constantly questionable. He was missing plays. When healthy, these long target receivers are able to consistently turn in value if they're as talented as guys like Diggs and AJ Brown and Kenny Golladay. Let's jump back to our last tier 3 guy that we did skip over for a little bit, mostly because I know you're very high on him, and I, for the life of me, can't understand why. Keenan Allen. Talk to me.
So this is a good thing I brought it up when we were talking about AJ Brown, but I love consistency. Like guys who you can look at their track record, you see where they are, you can see where they're going to keep going. This guy's a target machine. Other than the one season where, of course, that's the season I owned him, where he came out 63 yards. Third quarter, his kidney explodes. And, of course, out for the rest of the season. But after that, 16 games. 16 games, 16 games. And in those 3 seasons after that fluke injury, 159 targets, 136 targets, 149 targets. Now he's got a new quarterback in town. I understand that, but I'm still planning for some regression. It's just they have him as the 16th wide receiver. You're going to get him probably in the back of the 3rd, maybe top of the 4th. And at that point, for probably my second wide receiver, yeah, I'll take a guy who's going to get 120 targets because most of the other guys, you're either you're hoping they get up there, but you're not guaranteed.
Do you mind if I jump in here? I know you're kind of whatever on Allen, so
yeah.
So I disagree that he's going to be a 120 target guy. I see that passing offense taking a massive step back. I personally don't think Justin Herbert was the guy. I think he is a big old pile of poop. And Tyrod Taylor, I correct me if I'm wrong, I think he's been on every team in the league at this point now. I believe San Diego was the last one on his NFL bingo card. Tyrod Taylor's garbage. Justin Herbert, he's going to be like the next Josh Rosen.
Tyrod Taylor's a 500 QB. Watch your mouth.
Yeah, okay, that's garbage.
Also, do not talk about Josh Rosen like that. He's going to rise, all right? The rise of Rosen is coming.
Rise like a poop phoenix directly into a new puddle of poop.
But
I have no faith in any part of that passing offense if you are catching targets further down the field than Austin Eckler. I think that they are going to be just jumping between bad rookie quarterback and bad journeyman quarterback, and Keenan Allen is going to suffer because of it. Like their rushing offense should be great because you got to keep a QB spy in to keep Tyrod Taylor honest, and that's going to open things up for Austin Eckler and Joshua. What's the rookie they drafted?
Joshua Jefferson.
No,
Justin Jefferson.
That Justin Jefferson is the Vikings.
Other way around.
But it's going to open things up for their running game.
But
it's going to mean bad things for their wide receivers who to this point have been valued as more elite guys. I don't think where he's going, which is, it is currently depressed. It is currently at least, middle to back of the second. But I think that's still too high for him. There's guys behind him that I'd rather have that are, I think, in a much safer situation because they at least have something reliable at the quarterback position that he doesn't have.
I do want to get you. I just want to throw a quick thing back at you, and that's the mindset I'm liking going into this draft this year.
Joshua Kelly.
But people are so people are so down on him. His ADP is going to keep slipping, and like I said, they have him at 16. His ADP is already at 17. I think it's going to slip into the 20s by the time draft season comes around. And my thing with the other part of that, if you're looking at him, we have to be kind of realistic with our stats. I mean, if you're going to pull 40 targets away from him, 30 targets, if you pull a huge chunk of targets away from him, he's still in the hundreds. And this guy has a catch rate that's insane. That's my other part I just love about him is because last year, 149 targets, he pulled in 104 balls. That's the thing. He doesn't drop. He doesn't have the dropsies like the Mike Evans of the world who has the big talent but can't come down with it.
I just don't think it matters. My big thing is I could see him having a Sam Darnold of last season career or season for Tyrod Taylor. Were you happy owning Sam Darnold if you were a Sam Darnold owner? Were you happy if you owned any of his receiving options? The answer to both of those, I think, is no, unless you're a masochist.
No. But Frankie, I know you were also down on him. So what? Try and knock me off this pedestal. I mean, you can't because I'm cemented here, but.
If I could say one thing actually before, because you did mention that he's slipping. If he falls far enough, I'll take a shot at him. I don't like where he currently is. If he moves back to middle of the third or even beginning of the fourth, all of a sudden I'm much more interested in him. I just don't like him in the second.
Yeah, that second's a little bit too high. Like I said, like he said, if he falls far enough and I have enough of a high pick to get him, I mean, there's no harm in throwing a dart at that board. I've done worse before. But it's...
As we collectively giggle.
I digress. Tyrod Taylor, as much of an average quarterback as I like to say he is.
Hey, man, we may give you shit. I drafted Zach Stacy in the 4th round once, so you know.
He is a step down from Phillip Rivers, unless you would put them in the same caliber of quarterback.
That's basically what I'm saying too, is where it's like, you know, say what you will about the mess they have at the quarterback position now, but I'd take Phillip Rivers over either of them. I'd take I'd take almost half the league over either of them. I hate both of their options. I think he is just where he's going. It's just you're passing over guys who have way more upside than him. You're basically drafting him at his ceiling here.
But see, that's where I wanted to put it, because you were talking about his 2nd round ADP. That's not where his ADP is at right now. Double checking his ADP, he's 41. So that means you're getting him at, as you said, at the back of the 3rd. Probably going to fall into the 4th.
I show it's at 17.
Yeah,
that's when you only do wide receivers. If you should put everyone in there, his ADP right now per Fantasy Pros is 41, which is 4 less than what they have as the 37th ranked overall player.
Okay, so 41, I am more interested in him. Then I still think that comparatively, because if that's the case, and there's still guys below him that I'd rather have, but that's at least the more of the range which I'm looking at.
Just to kind of give you a...
So maybe I'm not as sour on him as I thought.
Right, so just to kind of let you know who you're taking him over. Robert Woods, Melvin Gordon, Calvin Ridley, Chris Carson, Le'Veon Bell.
You just listed a bunch of guys that I would take over him. I mean, if we're just talking about wide receivers, because that is the point of today's episode, I can name at least 5 guys below him that I would take over him. I would take Robert Woods, I'd take Calvin Ridley, I'd take Cortland Sutton, I'd take Devontae Parker as of when this episode came out. That could change the closer we get to the season. And I would take DJ Chark.
I will happily take that free 100 targets to the bank, walk home with, even like I said, he said it. He also last year only got 11 yards per reception.
That's probably not going to go up with the garbage they have under center.
I think it's going to go up just because, like I said, he's that 11 yards per reception. Like I said, I know he has the talent, and like I said, he just gets too many receptions. You have to be in on a guy who can get 100 receptions.
So just as a counterpoint to your 11 yards per reception or whatever, if you were just chastising AJ Brown for having that high yards per reception,
right?
So you were saying that they were fluky long balls, which boosted that up,
right.
Correct? So what's to say that Keenan Allen didn't have his yards per reception boosted up by the same thing?
Well,
11 yards per reception by its nature isn't fluky long balls.
Yeah, that would put him down in the 80s. For those of the people that buy, Cole Beasley, Kiki Kuti, Michael Thomas too, who I also think is going to take a step forward in that category. Is it you're getting to the area where it's kind of a normal amount of yards, like I said, because teams are usually targeting to throw 6-7 yards out, and they're cutting for at least a couple yards before they get hit.
I communicated this poorly.
Yes.
If his volume's going down, wouldn't that... Well, no, the yards per reception would go up. Yeah. So I guess that kind of makes a little bit more sense.
No, that's... You're assuming it would go up. There's nothing stating that when you get less catches, your yak goes up.
Like I said, at the end of the day, I'm just pushing him a little bit up. I'm pulling his receptions down. But at the end of the day, I just think he's too.
No, that's fine. You're right. I was just looking at wide receivers as far as the
ADP.
Yeah. And ADP obviously ADP right now is very limited because almost no one's doing their drafts yet. So obviously that stat's going to change a lot.
That's more.
But like I said, but my stance still remains that there are a handful of guys in just the wide receiver pool, never mind at other positions, that I would take over Keenan Allen. Let's jump back to a guy that I would take over Keenan Allen. He's ECR 18 right now, Calvin Ridley. Frankie, I know you're a big Calvin Ridley fan. Me and Vitaly were both more kind of think he's accurately priced. You want to lead us off on this one?
Like I said before, I mean, I wouldn't move him up too much. I'd probably move up a couple spots, probably above Keenan Allen. Maybe another one or two. Look at all the injuries that the Falcons had last year.
Sure.
I've always liked Calvin Ridley. I've always been Team Calvin Ridley. I typically don't like wide receiver ones on teams because they always get shadowed by the best corners.
So you're saying don't draft Julio. Gotcha.
Got it.
Also, I've had Julio on my team before.
You guys heard it here first, folks.
Draft Julio.
Don't draft Julio.
I mean, that was the season he busted his foot up, but
I digress.
Disclaimer: two of the three of us love Julio.
Calvin Ridley last year, even with all the injuries, still 93 targets, 63 receptions.
Sure.
He didn't really have that boom yards that you saw with AJ Brown, but I mean he's gonna get that volume. Him and Julio are obviously the two main targets of that team, especially with Austin Hooper gone. I don't see why he shouldn't be higher. The Falcons are looking a lot better than they did at the beginning of last year. In terms of just health. 13.7 yards per reception. 67% catch rate.
Like I said, I completely agree with everything you're talking about. Like I said, it does give me some promise when you look at his rookie year. He got 92 targets, and then he went to 93 his second year, and he didn't play a full season. So, I mean, that's a no-brainer for me to stat him out for at least 110 targets.
Sure.
Like, sleepwalk to that number. And then adding Todd Gurley, like I said, as I talked about in our other show, I think Todd Gurley has a real chance to produce in that offense. It's an offense like Pittsburgh used to be, and I think will be again. They just produce points.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
They're a very strong fantasy
also,
offense.
Notoriously as well, third-year wide receivers often take that step. This is his third year in the league.
And a big reason for why I like him where he is, and I think he's in a spot to take a big step forward. One, you mentioned he is third year. He's 25. He's sort of growing into his body at this point. The Falcons are also on an up year. As traditionally they take every other year off. Matt Ryan just likes to get golfing early sometimes. this year, this year is, if you believe in that sort of stuff, it is a Matt Ryan boom year. I personally have it listed the same way. And if you believe Matt Ryan's going to boom, his pieces have to boom with him. Matt Ryan, contrary to popular belief, cannot catch the balls that he throws.
It's Ito Smith.
And
That's what
I mean, even if you look at down years, I mean,
It's all Ito and Hayden Hurst. Watch out.
even in down years, Matt Ryan's always been a statistically good quarterback. Like,
Yeah.
he's always had the yardage. He's always
Yeah, I
had,
mean, he had
he's always
40
had the passes per game.
4,150 yards last season.
Yeah, it's like even in bad years where they're not winning games, he's still having a good season himself, even if he has no one to throw the ball to.
Yeah, like I said, all I can smell out of this one is just that beginning whiff of Roddy White being supplanted by Julio Jones.
I mean, Julio is getting older.
He's getting older. He's got he's got screws in his feet, and like I said, I think he only got maybe 2 more years before he hits that just hard wide receiver cliff. That once again, big wide receivers just happen to have.
Yeah, I
we're
mean,
going to talk about later.
I think Calvin Ridley can end up being a steal this year. I like him a lot. I'm gonna try and get him where he's going. Like I said, I would take him over people like Keenan Allen, maybe over Adam Thielen, just because he is on that high-powered throw-first offense, and he's got a wide receiver as prolific as Julio Jones, who's going to be drawing the primary coverage, so he gets to run against lesser cornerbacks, which is also huge. Jumping to the next guy on our list here, and a guy that Frankie, me and you both aren't a big fan of. Vitaly, you like this guy. Let's talk about Tyler Lockett and why you love him.
I mean,
Why would you draft Tyler Lockett in the first round, Vitaly?
well, I would suggest you don't unless you have the biggest Seahawks homer in your league, and then draft him and then trade him.
So in Seattle only leagues, you would.
Yes. You steal him with the first overall pick and swap him. Obviously kidding, but he's a guy that everyone had pegged, ready to take that next step. It wasn't quite there. He dealt with injuries last year, and Metcalf kind of stepped in that place. A lot of people are projecting for Metcalf to already have supplanted Lockett. I'm just the opposite. I think Metcalf is a little bit too simplistic of a wide receiver, and I think defenses are going to be able to shut him down. I think Lockett is more of a complete wide receiver, and you're going to see more of those, 9 target, 7 target games that you can get out of him, where he's going to get you. It's just, I think going back to his mainly is Russell Wilson and him have a rapport. As Frank was talking about, it's an important part. I just think he's the main guy, and I think everyone else around him is clearly secondary. So once again, we don't really try and project for injuries. I know he does usually have a nagging kind of muscle injury that comes up every once in a while, but
He has been known for soft tissue injuries.
yeah. But even with injuries, 1,000 yards, 110 targets, and DK Metcalf got 100 targets last year too. I'm projecting for DK's targets to come back a little bit to earth, and I think that Lockett's going to take those and push up into the 120, 130 range, and you're going to see that bear fruits.
I think, so to go back to what I said with Ridley, which was one of my points, is, again, I don't like the wide receiver ones. I think that Metcalf has showed he can be a wide receiver one without being like a Julio wide receiver one. You say Lockett's that guy.
Mm-hmm.
To explain what I'm saying a little bit more. Lockett's that guy. He's going to get covered by those number one corners. He's going to get covered by those, like, the shadows.
Right.
Metcalf is going to be in a la Calvin Ridley situation where he can get open a lot more. He's not going to have those like top guys on him, and I think that he's going to reap those. I don't think he's going to see a huge jump in numbers, but I think, I mean, like you said, we can't count on injuries, but I think if we see another injury from Lockett, I think even without that, we're still on our way to seeing Metcalf take over that offense, because, I mean, Lockett can do more, but I think Metcalf is more of the pure wide receiver.
So to wrap it up on Lockett, a big reason why I'm not high on him, actually why I would drop him quite considerably. Before last year, everyone was considering him to be this gadget receiver. He was good, but he was good on a low volume. And the second you pumped his volume up, sure, he still played the full season, but he was banged up throughout the year. He actually lowered his catch rate from the year before back towards where he was. He didn't post a great yards per target. His touchdowns went up, but they didn't go up as much as you would like with the additional volume that he got. And at the end of the day, I don't see him as a guy that can consistently sustain that level of targets. And I think that's why they wanted DK Metcalf, because DK Metcalf is much more of your prototypical receiver, where he goes out there and he gets the heavy targets and he gets those big contested catches, and he's that big body receiver that can throw defenders off of him on the way to the end zone. You do have to believe that DK Metcalf is going to take a step forward in his sophomore year, and be able to be that guy for Seattle. The fact that they have Russell Wilson makes it a heck of a lot easier for him, because Russell Wilson's a top 3 quarterback in the league. But I personally believe that Lockett is still going to have value. I just don't think that his value is where people are placing him, because I think he's going to have some target regression and go back towards that roughly 70 targets that he maintained for 4 years.
I just want to throw one closing thing that you guys both talked about, how much you like DK and how much you think he's ready to supplant Lockett. My big thing, and you also brought up, is catch rate. His catch rate did come back. I think the big thing when you look at is when Russell Wilson is looking at who he's going to throw to when a play breaks down, who's he going to go to? The guy with the 75% catch rate or the guy with the 56% catch rate? Because do remember, DK Metcalf got 100 balls thrown his way and only caught 56 of them.
Right, but that's a rookie thing. Rookies are going to drop balls. That's why if you believe that DK is going to take that step forward and be a more complete wide receiver, part of being a more complete wide receiver is making more of those catches.
Also, to answer your question,
if he keeps having a 50-something catch rate, he's not going to make it as a wide receiver.
To answer your question, whoever's open.
I mean, to be fair, like I said, we've seen elite receivers before with dropsies, a la Mike Evans.
But 50's low.
56 is low. Like I said, it's once again showing itself with me is my love of consistent receivers.
I mean, Mike Evans last season at least had 58.
He's going up.
So, but really it just comes down to, if you think that DK Metcalf is going to take that step forward and improve his catch rate and build on the season he had last year, then it makes sense to project Lockett to take a step back to where he was for 4 of his 5 seasons. I mean, to this point, we've seen that he is much more of the low catch, do a lot with a little sort of receiver, as opposed to being this volume hog. Let's jump to a pair of receivers that are, if you believe that one of them is going to play this season, going to be competing. AJ Green and Tyler Boyd, who I'm very interested in the pair of them. I'd like to hear you guys' opinions on them. I hate AJ Green with a fiery passion.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like I said, I owned Tyler Boyd last year, and I considered flipping him a lot at the times because he was kind of that just volume without the flash. But like I said, I love nothing more in fantasy than consistency. A guy who's going to keep getting you work, because more targets, more receptions, that's more chances for touchdowns, more chances for points. I usually am the guy to avoid your Deshaun Jacksons, those guys who are going to try and break
Flashy guys.
Yeah, the boom bust guys. I like to
Your
have
Mike Wallace's.
Yeah, I like to have one in my flex, maybe every other week, but I'd rather a guy who's going to keep getting consistent work, because they can also take one to the house if they get if the play falls the right way.
Sure, it's harder, but yeah.
But honestly, they should easily be flipped here, because I think, at least for this season, Tyler Boyd should overtake him, because John Ross he's that one-trick pony. He's running down the field catching a ball.
If by one-trick pony you mean hurt constantly, then yes.
That's another trick. I guess he's a two-trick pony. But
he can catch a single ball for a touchdown and then die.
They have AJ Green above Tyler Boyd?
Oh yeah, just a couple spots, but it's still like,
expert consensus ranking has AJ Green at 28 and Tyler Boyd at 30.
But the bigger part is that big gray line that's just tier 5. Because AJ Green apparently is a whole tier above Tyler Boyd at this point, which, I mean...
So the big issue for me, and the hurdle that I keep being unable to get over, is I'm not convinced he's going to play. I mean, he's played, 10 games in the last 2 seasons? 9 games in the last 2 seasons? Somewhere around there? Like, he has shown that it's more likely he's going to be off the. I mean, I said earlier I don't project for injury, but he showed at this point is more likely he's going to be off the field than on the field, and he's also 32, I believe. So he's getting up there for wide receivers. He's a big guy. He's collected a lot of injuries. And Tyler Boyd runs the routes that someone like Joe Burrow, who's going to be new to the NFL, is going to be looking for. I mean, like, even if A.J. Green gets on the field, I don't think he's going to be Joe Burrow's first look.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, as we've kind of been hinting at through the whole episode, is the, 32, 33, these big body receivers who are going up for those 50-50 balls, they break down. They break down hard. And, I mean, nobody knows this better and knows that pain better than our resident Cowboys homer over there. How did Dez do those last few seasons?
Oh, you pronounced his name correct the first time. Dead Bryant.
Oh, Dez Bryant.
He just wanted a little too much money, and he went to New Orleans, and they tore his ACL in practice. It's fine.
Yeah, I came in at the downswing of his career. I was never a huge fan.
He did catch it, though.
I want to blame it all on the catch because he was never the same after he didn't catch that pass.
He did catch it.
And like I said, as somebody who kind of came in a little bit later in the game, and I didn't get to see the peak of him. You were a little bit before me, but you remember Andre Johnson.
Oh, I loved Andre Johnson back in the day. He was one of my favorite guys to own.
Who didn't love Andre Johnson, though?
Andre Johnson and Calvin Johnson, they were both they were wonderful to have in your fantasy team.
Yeah. At least Calvin Johnson got out before it got too bad. And saved his body a little bit.
Have you seen his fingers?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's spooky.
But
you should look it up.
Yeah, like I said, I wish I would love to see a couple more years in Megatron. I definitely know he had it in him, but kudos to him for getting out of the game before he wrecked his body.
It's a tradition of Lions players to quit while they're ahead.
But that's just how it is with AJ Green. It's like, if I'm going to buy a veteran, I'll go a couple spots down to 32, and I'll take Julian Edelman.
I hate Julian Edelman this season, but that's mostly because I don't like almost any Patriots this season because that offense is going to be very confusing. I love their defense.
I'm just saying.
But
so gun to your just one last point. Gun to your head. You're taking Julian over AJ because at least Julian's probably going to be on the field.
I mean, gun to my head, I'm taking Preston Williams over AJ Green.
We should probably stop saying gun to our head. Just
like if someone said to me $1 million, you got to pick who's going to be the better receiver this season, and I get to choose between Jalen Reagor and AJ Green, I'm taking Jalen Reagor because, as I've said, I'm not actually convinced he's going to play.
I mean, Jalen Reagor does have a sweet name, though.
Yeah, but it's like, like 100%. In an either-or situation, am I picking the guy that I don't think is going to be on the field, or am I picking the guy that I think is going to have at least a passable season? Like, I'll take passable. I'll take James Washington. AJ Green is almost useless to me, especially given that he's not going to fall far enough in. We're going to see the same thing we saw last year, where people are going to be taking him based on what if he returns to what he was 4 years ago? Like, okay, well, that'd be great. What if I found $1 million in an envelope on the side of the street? Like, that'd also be pretty sweet. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's basically the whole thing. But
last thing on our list, we wanted to go through and give a few guys that are very cheap guys, guys much further down the ranks that we think are excellent values. Just because I really want to hear Frankie's take on this, I'm going to let him lead this off. Frankie, tell us why you think Larry Fitzgerald, 400-year-old Larry Fitzgerald, is going to be a value for fantasy owners this season.
Now, you say 400 years old.
Oh, I'm sorry, 405.
405. Led the Cardinals in targets last season.
True.
You heard about the trade, right?
Yes. So now, okay. So now he's the number 2. You're putting him as the number 5 option.
Yes, I believe that Christian Kirk is going to take another step forward. I believe that Kenyon Drake with a full season with the Cardinals and no longer having David Johnson there. Chase Edmonds is nothing. Benjamin isn't going to do anything big. I believe that Kenyon Drake is going to be a big factor for targets. I have him getting, I believe, 70 this season. Nuke is obviously going to get his. Like, no one's supplanting him. Christian Kirk is going to get an uptick. Larry Fitzgerald just got another year older. Cliff Kingsbury has been talking glowingly about Andy Isabella and Hakeem Butler this offseason. Like, I think there's a real chance that he's. I mean, obviously he's on his way out. He's old, but or he's old for a football player. But I hate Larry Fitzgerald this year. I think he's a waste of a draft pick basically because if anything, he's gonna be competing with targets with the two sophomores, Andy Isabella and Hakeem Butler.
Yeah, just to give my quick 2 cents because I'm kind of both ways on him, but best ball I do like him just as a late round flyer because maybe he still sticks in there as a 3rd round guy. But
Well, in best ball he's better too because if he has one good game, then you get that one good game.
yeah,
You don't have to guess which one it is.
but I forget who was your bargain guy again.
Oh,
was
I like Deontay Johnson.
And now is that just you going with the
I believe
guy-
Pittsburgh's
the
gonna bounce
number-
back. Yeah.
the number 2, but also like the number 2 guy next to the elite receiver.
Oh yeah. I think Juju's going to draw the lion's share of the coverage. Big Ben slings it. Deontay Johnson's going to have value. We saw he was useful last year. He looked like a future star in the league. And if you believe that Pittsburgh's going to take a step back, Juju's not catching 200 balls. It's just simple math. The targets have to go somewhere, and James Conner breaks down.
Yeah, I mean we are still waiting to see what Big Ben looks like. Sans Antonio Brown and
Sure.
they,
I think regardless of how good he looks, I think he's still going to throw it the same amount.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a guy who does not shy away from forcing it downfield.
so you're not worried about his curveball losing a little bit of speed after Tommy John's.
Even if it loses speed, I don't really care. Like I said, this is also a cheaper guy. He's going to be a 3rd wide receiver at best, maybe low 2nd. Let's get to your guy, who's another downfield target, Mecole Hardman.
Yeah, so with my philosophy of I usually like to go consistent early, so late round, shoot for the moon. If you can get a late round guy that's on Kansas City, who, I mean, granted, like I said, I'm not projecting this at all, but he was catching a touchdown every 4.3 receptions, I believe it was. But it's insane numbers. But the kid has speed, and that's what Casey's built to do. And honestly, Sammy Watkins, he was already flirting with retirement. I think the team's ready to just kind of swap those guys around. So, yeah, I'll take the number 2 in KC for dirt cheap.
Well, the thing I like about Mecole Hardman too, I do think he's an excellent late round flyer because we've seen that Tyreek Hill, for reasons that aren't always injury related, has trouble staying on the field.
Yep.
If he's missing, Mecole Hardman is very much that Tyreek Hill archetype where he's a fast guy who gets downfield before you can blink. Even if he misses a game for a hammy, like he's an excellent fill-in guy if the current wide receiver 1 is not on the field for any given reason.
Especially on a team like KC.
Oh yeah, I mean you gotta love anyone that's attached to Pat Mahomes.
Yeah, like I said,
It's a big reason why I'm a big fan of Clyde Edwards-Helaire this
and
season.
like I said, when I was picking this guy out, I liked him, but then when I saw all the rookie wide receivers that are going ahead of him, and with the one, maybe 2 wide receivers that actually produce on their rookie season, yeah, I'll take the guy who's a second-year receiver and is on Casey and has a legitimate shot to be at least the number 2. Because I'm not going to
Sure.
project for
No,
anything
I
else,
can see that.
but he could be the number 2 for Patrick Mahomes, like that, who could churn out 45 touchdowns in his sleep.
I mean, Sammy Watkins last year was like, for my next trick, I'm gonna disappear, and then he didn't reappear until the playoffs.
Exactly.
He had a door blowing game week 1. Then he's like, all right, guys, see you in the playoffs. I'll be back.
He went to go hunt those lizard people.
Yeah. Well, yeah, when you're fighting lizardmen in the tunnels.
Yeah, he saved us in another way.
All right. Well, that's gonna do it for our wide receivers. Let's do a quick beer check before we do last word.
I'm like 2 in a sip.
Oh, I'm on my 4th.
2.25.
All right, so
Smoked you guys.
yeah,
I'm gonna talk about something a little more controversial today, but I feel like even given our limited position to speak to the masses, it's poignant. Guys, do what you can to get out there and support this whole Black Lives Matter and justice for George Floyd movement because it is really important. It's insane that a group of people can be subjugated in broad daylight on camera like unfortunately African Americans unfortunately are, and I mean and these protesters as a whole. Like I mean we've seen people get run over by cars, just maced for no reason, arrested for no reason, trampled by horses. Like it's it's really important that everyone, regardless of what you can do, whether it's donating, going to these protests, trying to help out any way you can, because this is a real societal issue that America's sort of been dancing around for years, and it's massively important that everyone does their part to help, because that's the only way this is ever going to get better. Like, if everyone just keeps covering their ears and shutting their eyes and hoping that it goes away, it will for another 3 months, 6 months, whatever, and then something else is going to happen, and it's going to resurface even worse. And it's something it's never going to truly go away until we as a society take steps to fix it. And it's honestly just, it's obscene that it's even gotten to this point. It should never have gotten to here. So, like, we as a society need to admit, okay, we fucked up. How do we fix this now? So, like, reach out to people that you know that are supporting this, if you know anyone, or Google it. There are plenty of ways to reach out and support the movement. And like I said, it's one of those things where it's time that we all just step up and be decent human beings and do what we can to fix this. You don't have to be president to fix it. And I mean, even the president's barely doing the bare minimum, if you can even say that, to fix it. So, just do better, everyone. That's my take here. Is just do better. Do better. Help people, and hopefully we can all move to a better tomorrow. And wait for the moon to come crashing into the earth in June or something. Whatever new hell 2020 has planned for us.
Yeah.
Also, don't loot.
Yeah, and try not to loot. Keep it peaceful, people. All right, well, that's gonna do it for us. Any closing thoughts from you guys?
No, I thought it was well said. Like I said, I was feeling like I might get the win there in the chug, and I was considering whether I'd go that route or not. But I think you summed up everything I was thinking. Well said.
I was drinking to get the chug, so I could specifically say that. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Pulled me from last week.
Well, we will see you all next Monday. We're going to be talking quarterbacks. Adios, people.
Rosen.